hey, you know what, let's keep matching numbers motor inside the car. There'll be options with a L28 motor for limited 24 hours.
It is believed to be a simple habit, checking to make sure you're not in gear in order to relieve the pressure of holding down the clutch pedal. I am here to tell you that it is not just a habit, and for just $1 a day, you can help a fellow enthusiast in need. You can help end the plague that is slop wobble. And to my fellow Manuels, do yourself a favor and buy yourself a short shifter. What's up, crew? Welcome back to Prjct Garage, a channel dedicated to money pits around the world. In today's video, we are back in my E36 Prjct Vibranium. Yep, the name has definitely changed, and I'm sure you will be sensing a theme soon. I mean, if you haven't figured it out based on that name, I don't know, we might not be able to be friends. Working on something that's been stewing in my cabinets for literally 8 months, possibly 9 now, gonna probably be 10 by the time I upload this video, and that is the Garagistic short shifter with the DSSR and 95A transmission mounts. We also have a braided clutch line, because why not while we're under there? And other than COVID and the lack of motivation to get working on this car, I was also just waiting for a pre-ordered part from Garagistic, and that is their new selector joint for the E36. And since this car is going to be up on stilts for a little while, since I do need to do the head gasket, I also ordered some motor mounts because it is recommended to replace all of the mounts. Replacing just the transmission mount makes it stiff, which then can affect the motor mounts. And if you don't change the transmission mount, but you do a solid mount shifter, that can affect all of the other mounts as well. So I went ahead and ordered those. Those will be coming in later. We'll probably put those in once I remove everything else to do the gasket. But enough about the parts. Let's get this bad boy off the ground. Ah, shit. Well, I mean, that might make it easier to work on the car, but all my parts are normal sized. Yeah, let's bring it back. Okay, it was the wrong one, sorry. There we go. Let's get started. Before I jacked it up, I removed all the stock parts. For the most part, super easy process. Just take your time, like I've said in previous projects. I did rip apart one of the window buttons, and hopefully I can fix that. But now that we got this thing up in the air, let's get all this stuff out of the way. Fuck you. Fuck you. Ow! You're cool. Fuck you. It's all out. Let's do the install. Clearly, the teardown was definitely far more ridiculous than that. The drive shaft and Guibo, as many know who have done this before, is an absolute POS. Then, of course, there's the bitch clip, which was, well, of course, a big old bitch. Boom. We out. And I'm not even gonna dive into the one-piece exhaust system that I have. Although, one positive did come out of it. You know, anytime you take an exhaust off of an engine, detaching it from the headers, and you've got that header to nothing, you have to start the car. There's the text from Sarah. What in the fuck just happened? But I ended up taking it all out at once. Wasn't actually as bad as I thought, but it was the rusty bolts into the header were the bad part. So since there's a lot of parts in this particular video, I decided to keep it pretty general as I talk about each part of the installation. I do plan to do a little bit more of an in-depth video on each piece or a combination of pieces depending on how much there is to talk about in future videos, as well as a DIY rating per installed part. But to kick things off, since we got everything out of the way, I got the solid mount in place using some magnets. Thanks, COVID. I found this method on another YouTuber's channel and it was extremely effective. So if you do have a project like this that uses a sandwich plate system and you don't have a friend around, using magnets or a magnet to hold the bottom piece in place while you thread from the top is an incredibly easy way to go. Link to his video somewhere up there. Then it was on to the selector joint. Two things here. Test fit your DSSR pins before getting under the car. Specifically for the selector joint, I had to give it a little bit of persuasion with a hammer. And take that with a grain of salt. Don't go forcing things into spaces that they don't belong. In this case, there was just a little bit of misalignment internally with the bearing, and it just took getting the pin all the way through in order to get it in while underneath the car. Secondly, the pin that secures the joint to the transmission is one way. So don't go just slamming it with a hammer like I did. I may have forced it through the wrong way, which it's still good. It doesn't slip through or anything, but I should have realized how hard it was. Probably meant that it wasn't supposed to go that way. And with that said, when you do go to install it, test fit which side is the one way before you go sticking your hands in a place that's really tight. And while we're on the topic of the DSSR pins, I ran into a slight issue with the holes not matching with the pin width.
Is this not going into this?
So while waiting on options from Garagistic, I took care of the trans mounts and the clutch line. Trans mounts were super easy peasy, with the exception of the torque spec being a little bit weird, but I'll cover that in the future video talking specifically about the mount installs. And for anyone who's done the clutch line on this car, you already know. It's, yeah. My big hands didn't exactly have the greatest time, and I'll cover that in the future video as well. And then while waiting for Garagistic to provide the options, I decided to, try a little technique. And because I'm an extremely impatient person, I decided to say F it, send it, and I took a Dremel to the holes of the DSSR. This did turn out to be a recommended potential option after talking with Garagistic on the phone. The other option was obviously to send it in to have it resized. They did provide great customer service on the phone, talking through the options, and I even learned a lot of things about my specific project here, which I will cover in a future video. How many future videos do I have? Now, if you do end up doing this, if you find yourself in this specific predicament, grind, test, you don't want to open it up too much, because what you are trying to avoid already by installing a solid mount shifter and the selector joint and DSSR is slop. So if you open those holes too much, you are going to add a little bit of play, which you don't want. Once the hole accepted the pin, I got the solid mount attached to the trans, and oh my God, what a difference. I've never installed a short shifter and this felt incredible. Luckily, the previous owner passed along a new Guibo, bolts and nuts, got everything tightened up and tested the new clutch line. It felt enough different to where I wanted to make sure that it engaged. With the wheels off the ground, I just started her up, slowly put it into gear to make sure that my clutch was disengaged, clicked it in and let the clutch off a little bit, looked back, checked the wheels, they were spinning. That was a huge win. With everything seemingly ready to go, I put the header to axle portion of the exhaust back on, left the muffler off for now, thought I was gonna sell it, and took her for a test drive. more good to know before I wrap this video up, and that's about the motor mounts. I had mentioned earlier about installing motor mounts with trans mounts and the solid mount to keep things kosher. That's what I thought the main and only reason was, but after talking to Garagistic on the phone, I actually learned that it has a lot to do with keeping shift points in alignment. On my test drive, I actually ended up missing third, because when I went from second to third, obviously I do need to get used to the shorter shifting and the tighter space, but I went to go throw it into third and it got stuck in between first and third. On the phone with Garagistic, they were saying that because the motor wants to torque more on the soft mounts and the transmission is kind of stuck in place with the transmission mounts being more solid, and then you have an actual solid mount shifter, it throws third gear into this no man's land. So in the very near future, I will be throwing these on there as well. These are 95A motor mounts. It's gonna really tighten things up. And I'm super stoked to get that done. Obviously a future video. Justin was saying that this is gonna make it feel like my car is constantly misfiring. I can't wait. Super freaking stoked with how everything turned out, and another happy ending on a DIY project. Definitely some tough times for a giant 6'4" human being underneath a car, but definitely well worth it in the end. Like I said earlier, I'll be doing separate videos for DIY ratings per part or a combination of parts depending on the situation. So thanks for watching. Hope this was dope for you. Let us know down in the comments what you think. Give us a share, hit that like button, and I'll see you in the next one.